Well, you can probably guess by the fact that I'm starting another video on this landing page that we're going to talk a bit more about Dusk Till Dawn. But hey, we're going to do something a little bit funner today. We're going to speculate on Dusk Till Dawn. So that is something I want to do a bit more on my channel, is touch on some introspective thoughts about Flesh and Blood, the game, and obviously card design and mechanics and all that good stuff. So where better to start than Dusk Till Dawn? And we can sort of speculate on what might be coming in Dusk Till Dawn. So, where to start? Well, how about we take a proper look at this artwork behind us. This gorgeous stained glass artwork. I love mosaics. Yes, I do. Okay, so what can we observe in this artwork? Well, there's a few people that stand out now, isn't there? So, for instance, what comes to mind? Boltyn, Dorinthia, and Oldhim. And of course, everyone's on their way to Solana. They're all making the pilgrimage to help out with the fight. So, what might this mean? Well, maybe, we'll see a refeaturing of Boltyn, Dorinthia, and Oldhim. Oldhim's probably the interesting choice, right? But in saying that, if we take a look at actual play, Oldhim is close to being banned in Classic Constructed and is banned in Blitz. So it is somewhat necessary that there is a reprint of Oldhim or any Elemental Guardian for play. So it's worth considering that, again, he will feature in this set in some manner. Now, the presumption is the fact that it is a supplemental set. We, of course, will see cards for every single hero. That is the general norm, although that tagline has not been used, so contain new cards for every hero in the game since Everfest. We don't see it in the little blurb for Dynasty. All we see is designed to expand constructed play. So, why don't we take a look at something else interesting? Card totals. So 198 in Crucible, 198 in Everfest, 247 in Dynasty, and 236 in Dusk Till Dawn. So what might that mean then? Well, if we do the math, we can see that there are 11 less cards in Dusk Till Dawn than Dynasty, but both Dusk Till Dawn and Dynasty will feature more cards than Everfest and Crucible of War. What's worth keeping in mind for those is the fact that Crucible of War had 8 heroes, whereas Everfest had 9 due to the new Illusionist hero that came out in Monarch, and then of course Dynasty had 10, with Assassin featured in Dynasty itself, and Dusk Till Dawn will have just those 10 as well. Granted, this is not discussing Merchant, Shapeshifter, Bard, or, well, I guess you can stick Royal in the tagline more so than the hero type. So yeah, so we have the 3 heroes that are sort of gimmicky, or specialized, if you will, that aren't really featured. Well, Shapeshifter was obviously featured, Crucible of War, Merchant was featured in Everfest, but none of them got their own cards, okay? So I doubt we will see any specific play cards for them quite yet. They're pretty much classes that I'm going to expect to see once we do get a PvE focus set, and I don't think Dusk Till Dawn will be that. We already have the tagline that, again, it is designed to expand constructed play, so there is no expectation for any PvE features to arise just yet. So then, what's worth touching on next? Well, how about we take a look at the actual cards that make up the 236 cards. So 1 Fable, that's a standard, 8 Legendaries, 56 Majestics, 77 Rares, 94 Commons, and 10 Marvels. We'll start with the Marvels, because I think this is the interesting part that everyone really wants to think about. So, the expectation might be something like this. We have our first preview, which is an Archangel Marvel, and then we have this statement that there are 8 Archangels of Light. So you might make the speculation that 8 of the Marvels are going to be Archangels. Now that's a valid rationale to have, but you got to remember, in Dynasty, okay, we had 14 Marvels, 10 of which were equipment, so the 9 classes outside of Assassin, plus 1 generic, and then the other 4 was Crouching Tiger, the Emperor, the Mechanologist, and an Archangel. So we already have a Marvel Archangel, okay? So there's only 7 more to be seen, including the one that's already been showcased. So that leaves 7 to possibly see as Marvels, right? Now, I doubt that all of them will be Marvels. It would make sense, but then what do they do with the other 3 cards? And that also means that none of the equipment are Marvels. So it's a tough thing to sort of call whether or not we see, again, a return to form of Marvel equipment cards, or if, we see 7 more Archangels, again, including this one, and then 3, I guess, shadow demons, possibly. That would make a good mix, because again, we have 10 to work with, so we got to speculate on the 10. But why don't we take another look at this passage? In Solana's Dark Tower, Prism's heralds have awakened the 8 Archangels of Light to fight alongside their valiant heroes. So, be it now or ever, the shadow shall not pass through the 8 gates of Solana. Okay, so again, we've got 8 Archangels, one of which has already been featured in Dynasty. But then we also have valiant heroes and Prism's heralds. Now, the heralds are most likely referring to the other angels that were featured in Monarch. But valiant heroes, this is the interesting thing to sort of consider. Of course, we can go down the expected route of just 7 more angels and then 3 shadow cards possibly. But why not consider the possibility of maybe, more hero cards? Champions of Solana versus champions of the Demonastery. Okay, it's a great way to reprint, for one, Oldhim in Blitz, and then, of course, potentially another Elemental Wizard. Because, again, they don't have to be Oldhim and Icelander, but we do need to see an Elemental Guardian and an Elemental Wizard for those cards to still, hold up in terms of play. So, them being reprinted is not a bad idea, and why not in this set? I think restricting ourselves to the box that this set has to be, Dusk Till Dawn, Light for Shadow, is restrictive. We already know that every hero is going to be touched on again. That is the expectation in a supplemental set, given the card size and the comparisons to the previous sets. It's highly expected that we see a similar number of cards per each hero. And in saying that, if we were to take a look at the actual numbers for all the different card types, so for instance, like we said before, Dusk Till Dawn features 8 legendaries, 3 more than Dynasty, 56 Majestics, 5 more than Dynasty, 77 rares, 4 less than Dynasty, and 94 commons, 15 less than Dynasty. Okay, we can chalk this up to what? Well, the increase in Majestics would make sense if some of the angels or archangels aren't actually Marvel cards. Okay, while I do think that the artwork for the archangels does fit the captioned explanation somewhere up here, that Dusk Till Dawn will feature the most magnificent marvels yet. I don't think having, again, seven more angels, all with this type of artwork, is fitting that criteria. I think we need some sort of diversity amongst the marvels that I don't expect them all just to be, well, not all, but the majority of them to feature the archangels. Okay, so I think a lot of the archangels will be relegated to the majestic slot, perhaps one as a legendary, because again, we've got 3 more legendaries than Dynasty, leaving the possibility that the other marvels, could be equipment, which is maybe the expected, but trying to figure out how they could make them flavorful or pretty, if you will, compared to a standard card that they do in the flip side with the extended or full art. I don't expect equipment to really fill the Marvel slots. I think they learned their lesson from Dynasty, where they were sort of torn between what could they really do. They could extend the art, enlarge it, but there's not really much for them to paint a bigger picture. So we got this symbolized just a diverse border, if you will. But I don't think this is regarded as pretty or as magnificent as these archangels. And then also in saying that, obviously Soroya, Archangel of Knowledge, is a legendary, whereas the Archangel of War is only a majestic. So we already know that they will be split between the different rarities, so we would expect some to be rare as well. In terms of playability, some need to be more accessible than the others, as we saw with the dragons for Dromite. Okay, so there is the expectation that they will span maybe rare all the way to legendary, not all majestic, and especially not all marvels. So I really do want to speculate on what marvels we'll see, because again, they have to fit this criteria of, scrolling up, being the most magnificent marvels yet. And again, I simply don't think they can get that done with equipment cards, especially if this is already presented as the stylization for marvels in Dusk Till Dawn, just being the extended, gorgeous looking art. That's not something they can generally do with equipment unless they, diversify the art and do something a bit more with it. Because if we look at, say, the Celestial Kimono, this being extended, doesn't really do much for the card, because again, we're focused on the kimono itself. You know, this would have to be represented as a far larger object, if you will, or to be presented in a nicer version as a marvel that features just extended art rather than this alternate border. So, what do I personally think the 10 marvels will be? Well, I would expect to see maybe 1 to 2 of the like angel allies, so 2 archangels possibly, or if we want to, you know, make this a significant archangel, I'd still expect 2, because I would expect some archangel to be legendary. If they're going to make another legendary archangel, I would also then expect it to be like the Archangel of Knowledge and feature as a marvel. So 2 of them will relegate to being archangels. Then I would also expect 2 of them to feature, you know, a new shadow demon ally, if you will. So that's 4, leaving 6. My expectation, 1 or 2 of them will be heroes, and then the rest, well, I don't really know. There will be easier to pull marvels or cheaper marvels, so some sort of token card that features maybe a marvel spectral shield, since that's probably going to be prominent, because I assume that all of the archangels are summoned in the same way, which is from looking at the Archangel of Knowledge. Okay, we transform a spectral shield into Soroya. That's it, though this is a light illusionist action, whereas this is not. This is a playable card. Right. But where's the summon mechanic? They're not showing us the back. So more heroes will have access to this archangel, but not the other one. So maybe, again, reading into this alongside their valiant heroes. So what if each archangel is relegated to a specific hero? All things to sort of mull over and think about. I do want to dive into the lore side of things and, you know, come up with some more grounded ideas given everything that's printed in this text. But we'll leave that for another one. So then, we're down to the actual card breakdown. So again, we have 15 less commons and 4 less rares. So I assume the generic slot, if any, would probably be taking the hit. In fact, you know what? I'm going to count out Dynasty, how many cards each hero got. I believe it's usually two rares and then four different commons, right? 1, 2 rares, perfect. 1, 2, 3. No, 3 commons. So 3, 2, and 3. And then we'll see if everyone fits that theme. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. So I would assume that this is still cemented as the format, if you will. So again, we'll see 10 heroes, each having 3 majestics, 2 different types of rares, and 3 types of commons. Right, the realistic answer was right in my face. Obviously, they came from Assassin, who got more cards than a standard. So if we stick with the 10 cards, 3 majestics, 6 rares overall, 9 commons overall for each hero, that gives us 18 cards per hero, or 180 cards for the overall set, which I think hits the mark, okay? So there are a total of 94 commons in Dusk Till Dawn. If there are 9 per hero, that's 90, leaving 4 as generics. I think that's plausible, though it doesn't really fit the scheme of usually commons having 3 of a kind. In fact, 94 in itself is not divisible by 3, so we'll probably see some sort of new token generation that fits that criteria, because, well, it has to be divisible by 3 for the majority of commons, right? Unless they're the specific commons. Are there any specific commons outside of equipment, right? So if we assume 9 commons per hero, that leaves 4 as equipment, possibly. Is that feasible? Probably not, no. You know, we'd probably see a cutback then on commons overall. Maybe 1 common. You know, the other speculation to honestly make is the fact that not every hero will be featured in Dusk Till Dawn. I would like to see, you know, more specific card lists for supplemental sets that actually fit within another set. So for instance, Dusk Till Dawn is meant to support Monarch, so it directly having cards that only benefit Monarch is not a bad thing for the state of play. You know, in terms of drafting, you could come up with drafting games where you mix Monarch packs with Dusk Till Dawn as a supplemental bonus. Something like that would be a neat idea. So yeah, I don't want to expect it to support every hero, but at the same time, it is the general norm that it does support every hero. So overall, the fact that there is only 94 commons instead of 109 does mean something has to give way, and it's probably going to be equipment. So I would still expect to see 9 commons, so 3 specific cards over the 3 different pitches for each hero, And then I guess that leaves 4 for equipment. And then we have rares. So for rares, there are 4 less rares, which again, we can probably just attribute to Assassin, and we'll still have the similar breakdown as Dynasty. And then for Majestics, we have 5 extra. So that's the first big change. And again, I will probably amount these to being the Archangels, give or take a few, or, you know, something to do with Shadow. And then same with Legendaries, there are 3 extra than Dynasty. Granted, Legendaries don't, you know, fit a norm. Crucible, we had what, 3? 2. We had 2 in Crucible. What about Everfest then? Everfest had 3 Legendaries, so that's more return to norm. Dynasty had extra. Again, we chalk it up to the Emperor and the Archangel, and then the rest were equipment. I would still expect 3 equipment pieces, leaving 5 Legendaries something special. I would expect 1 to be some Archangel, potentially the leader, and then the other ones, well, I can't really say. That leaves 4 Legendaries as something a bit more flavorful than just equipment. Because again, they can't print too much Legendary equipment, because equipment is very crucial to play, and if they're, you know, hard to get or expensive game pieces, it does act as sort of a detriment, and not something I personally would see them really doing in terms of focusing again on play over collectability. And then of course we have the Fable. I assume given all the pretense, the Fable will be something to do with a landmark, because we got the library. I could see, you know, like a chapel or a bastion, you know, something to do specifically with it. Right, and then the other thing I want to sort of talk about, because I did see it somewhere in here, you know, we'll do Control F. We do Gemini, the fact that the Gemini are something that feature in this lore. Again, I haven't read it. I will sit down, read everything, and make a more concise and grounded speculative video, if you will. I just wanted to do this as, you know, something a bit interesting, at least for myself, from a learning opportunity, if you will, to speculate on it, see how much I get right just from conjecture. But anyway, the fact that we have all this mention of the Gemini, I would like to see something to do with Cheyenne, something to do with Shapeshifter. Again, I would love support for some of these other cards, so Merchant, Shapeshifter, Bard, but I personally don't think we'll see any of that till PvE. And then, of course, we've got the other side of things, which are the subcategories. So we have Royal, Draconic, Elemental, Light, and Shadow. The expectation being that Light and Shadow feature heavily in this set, but I wouldn't put them past it to feature maybe Elemental, maybe Royal, especially Royal given A, the Gemini, and then the fact that, where is she? Dusk Till Dawn, there we go. We have Prism, Advent of the Thrones. So the adult version, the new adult version, was Royal, Light, Illusionist. So in a perfect world, I'd love this set to feature Prism, Cheyenne, Oldhim, Guardian, Illusionist, and Shapeshifter on the light side. Then we know Runeblade is on the evil side. I'm sure if I read the Monastery, I would get a bit more of her perspective. But yeah, no, I think we'll leave it there, and I'll sit down, I'll go through the lore side of the articles and come up with something a bit more grounded. I did think it was interesting enough to touch on the actual card values and the marvels specifically, because I don't think they're all going to be Archangels, and obviously the Archangels don't fill all 10 slots, since again, we've had 1 printed in Dynasty, wrong page, wrong section, in the Archangel of Knowledge, so that's 1 there, 1 spoiled that we already know is a Marvel, but I would expect that they don't just fill the other, what would it be? So there'd be 6 more, so 7 of the 10 Marvels just being Archangels, and then 3 possibly being related to Shadow. No, I would expect them to spread it out a bit more evenly. So definitely interested to see what exactly I get right, and also what else I can think up after I read both the Monastery and Solana properly. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts? What do you want to see more so in Dusk Till Dawn than anything else?